Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Could I welcome everyone to this extraordinary meeting of Colne Town Council this evening. The first item is apologies. Have we got any apologies?
Yes, I've had apologies from Councillor Cornish and Councillor Clamp.
Clamp?
Yeah.
Okay, we're happy to take those apologies. Thank you. Item 3 is declaration of interest. Has anyone any interest on anything on this agenda this evening? No. Thank you. Public forum. I understand that Mr. Birchenough would like to speak. Public forum.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you. Thank you. I realise that certain times of the essence. Good evening, and good evening. Thank you. I realise that timing of the essence for this particular meeting, so I will be brief. And I'm wanting to speak. Could have been at the previous meeting, I'm guessing, but speaking here to the full council in support of the neighbourhood plan, and just to make a couple of comments about it, and then ask a question. As an interested resident of Colne, I've followed the neighbourhood plan since the third roadshow, which was, as we established, was way back in May in 2018, and I made responses to various consultations and attended various meetings throughout that time. And at times I have been very concerned about to some extent, and a little critical of the delays and some slow progress that seems to have been made. But I must emphasise that this is mainly concern, and it regards the timeline slippage of this and the outcomes and consequences that could have been and may still occur because of these delays. So I hope these problems are now past and behind us and consigned to history. And I want to say that as a Colne resident, I thank all involved in assisting and formulating the comprehensive and detailed document that is so important for the development and for the future of the whole of Colne. So thank you all involved for the hard work, the effort and the resilience, and it's appreciated. And the question is that, can I finally ask that to those who are involved in the furtherance of this plan, and picking up from our last meeting, I should be addressing this probably to Pendle, but can I ask that all those who are involved in the furtherance of the plan, up to regulation 15 and 16, etc., work with it and bring it to a speedily and efficient closed manner and get it made as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in public forum this evening? No? Okay, thank you. Can we go on then to the substantive item, Colne Neighbourhood Plan? Are you speaking on this, open this, Sarah?
Yes, essentially, we've just had a meeting for those of you that watched that earlier live stream or were in the room then. And during that meeting, we debated various changes that have been sent in by the committee and by members of the public. And we made a little list and we agreed what changes we're going to make. And they're all quite small. Some of them are important, but small. And we agreed this list with Michael. So Michael can run through, because obviously any approval tonight is the document that we've all seen, plus these additional changes across the 4 documents. So that has to be understood. And then he is going to spend the next couple of days working on those. And I very much hope that I can drive everything to Nelson on Friday.
So is Michael going to give the amendments, really? Yes.
Yeah, in terms of the submission, there are a number of documents that will be wending their way to Pendle, but in terms of this evening, it's the neighbourhood plan itself and the accompanying policies map, the basic condition statement, the consultation statement, the revised site assessments report, and some changes that have been suggested for for the strategic environmental assessment, habitat regulations assessment. In terms of the plan itself, there are no identified changes to the text document, but there are 2 amendments that have been identified for the policies map. One is to add in 2 rugby pitches to the west at Holt House, and that amendment is obviously a factual amendment. The second one, similarly at the Upper Rough, the boundary that is on the policies map and the local green spaces report was subject to a previous change, but in amending that, I was a bit overzealous and I've taken the boundary too far to the west, and it should be to the east and include a footpath. So again, that's a suggested change that the previous meeting agreed to make. In terms of the basic condition statement, the only thing I've identified are 2 minor textual amendments, one a spelling mistake and one to add in at its first mention where the Colne Neighbourhood Development Plan's mentioned, to add in CNDP as an abbreviation. The consultation statement, there are again some fairly minor amendments. One around one of it's a presentation issue. There are 2 rather large tables in that document, table 1 and table 2, and just to help with the sort of presentation pagination, they have blank pages. It's been picked up. Is that an error? Well, it's not, and those are left intentionally blank. So we will add that text to those 2 pages. On the transport section, adding in the support of North Yorkshire County Council for as long as it exists into that section, and then there's another small typo. The missing words from statutory, it should read statutory bodies at appendix 2. And then one that always makes me chuckle a little is the little tennis match that goes on about the spelling of Alkin Coates. And again, further evidence that it is spelt with an E, so that will remain unchanged across all the neighbourhood plan documents. In terms of this strategic environmental assessment, habitat regulations assessment, again, minor typo picked up, a spelling mistake, or a word spanning 2 lines. Then a suggestion, because there's many acronyms in the document, that there's an appendix setting out what those acronyms are, which again is a relatively minor technical change. And then in one of the strategic environmental assessment tables, the heading is for yes/no answers, but actually within the table, some of those answers are not yes/nos, they are more don't know or not quite sure. So they have a question mark in the table, but it's not in the table heading. So again, we can make that change. In terms of the site assessments report, this document has been through numerous iterations over the last 4 years, and to some extent the core document, certainly the assessments, dates right back to 2018. So that's a point in time, and I wouldn't advise you to change those initial assessments, because I think it undermines what has been a rigorous, open and transparent process. And what the document has is sort of regular updates, the latest being the one for this year that updates the housing figures. What there are, though, are some suggested changes to site names, which we can cope with in terms of one site should read south of South Valley Drive, we can deal with that. The Primmett Bridge site is actually Notts Lane, and Khyber Street no longer exists. And that has been changed in the plan proper to Notts Drive, Hawley Street. There has been an issue raised about the land east of Waterside Road, but that is included in the plan as two separate sites, one for housing and one protected as green space. So those are the substantive changes there. A few things were picked up late on. One, the consultation statement is missing while in the text. One of the consultation dates going back to 2018, which I think is it Primmett Community Centre, that needs adding. Then everything will be given a final check through, spell check and what have you. And the other thing that was agreed at the previous meeting is in submitting to Pendle, a formal statement needs to be made to ask Pendle that they need to carry out or issue a determination on the strategic environmental assessment before the plan proceeds to the submission consultation, because that is something that's imperative given we still have an issue with Historic England. So those are the substantive changes to that batch of documents.
Thank you, Michael. Sarah?
I just wanted to explain for the rest of you about this objection from Historic England in case you feel anxious. We certainly felt anxious, didn't we, Gina? We were very anxious. I rang up Historic England and asked why they'd made an objection to a plan that seeks so much to protect the heritage of Colne. And they just replied, they object to every single neighbourhood plan that chooses any housing sites. So in fact, I shouldn't have taken it personally. We took it personally, didn't we? I told the lady that we took it personally. She said, oh no, what happens is it goes to the local authority, which in this case is Pendle, and they screen it out. So I asked what the screening out is, and it's apparently just simply a paragraph for each of our sites explaining its significance or otherwise to various heritage influences, and this we have done. So Pendle merely have to recognise this. I've spoken to John Holton informally. Pendle have to recognise this and issue that determination, and then that helps us then progress to the next stage. It seems a little convoluted. We were anxious, but seemingly it isn't the kind of objection is a strong word, isn't it? It hit us with force. It's not the kind of obstacle that it first seemed. It's more procedural. That's the way it's been explained to me, both by Historic England and by Pendle.
Thank you. Well, the previous meeting, as you know, of the neighbourhood plan, they've gone through this and had these amendments and agreed that they're happy with those. So I can ask the full council if they would be able to support this as it is now and vote it through for it to go to the next stage. So can I ask all those in favour, please? No one against. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have we got a proposer and seconder for this? Sarah, yes? Seconder? Oh, Brian, thank you. And it's the SEA stroke HRA, subject to those minor amendments. It's the Colne Regulation 16 draft, Colne Basic Condition Statement, Colne Consultation Statement, and the CNDP Site Assessment Report. Those are the ones that we are saying that go ahead. Okay, right. Thank you. And thank you, Michael, for explaining that. Right, well, we don't know when the next meeting is. Well, it's the 15th, it's the 16th of August, our next normal town council meeting. So we'll close the meeting now. And I think there's now an FES meeting after this meeting. It's a busy evening.